In a game that looked like Team USA was trying to do their best, Florida Panthers late game impersonations, Team USA was able to say, let's go home, baby, in advance to the semifinals of the 2026 Winter Olympics. What's up, Florida Panthers Daily? AJ Sheridan back here with you every single day, Monday through Friday, right here on YouTube, part of the Fan Arch community. Social medias at AJ Sheridan Radio. I'm coming in with some fire today, and that's because I'm recording this right about probably here or 5 minutes after Quinn Hughes was able to win it for the Americans. Cue Freebird, why don't you? The Americans are guaranteed to at least play for a medal. 3 games today, which was yesterday, went to overtime. We will get into some of the Olympic rules later. I am not a fan of the 3-on-3. My heart is still racing from the American win yesterday. But let's start with that game between the Swedes, Gustav Forsling for the Panthers, and the Americans. Matthew Tkachuk, wearing the alternate captain, is still my Captain America. You can see him over my shoulder. There were 8 pairs of NHL teammates playing in this one, which I think adds a little bit of excitement to this. You know the teams know each other, even though maybe they know the people on the other teams better than they know how to play with each other, and I think that is what is so awesome about this tournament. Yet another slow start for the Americans. I talked about yesterday that you can't fall behind the 8 ball. Luckily, the Americans never trailed in this one, but it wasn't the fast start that we wanted to jump out to that early lead and maybe bury Sweden. We did see kind of a lot of action in that Canada game. So coming straight off of that, it was like, all right, let's get into it. Maybe that's why it felt a little slower, because there was some good opportunities in that first period, but just nothing really going. It was funny up here at work. I work at a radio station, and there was 2 live shows going on. So anytime the Americans would score, we were planning on hitting the goal horn and kind of scaring the people who were on air. And they're like, oh, well, looks like America just scored. Now it's 3-0. Now it's 4-0. Well, we didn't get to do that a lot. We didn't get to do it often. In fact, the shows we were going to plan on doing it most, we didn't get to do it at all. The Panthers, I keep saying the Panthers, the Americans, sorry, I am riled up after that victory. The Americans were not able to light the lamp that often. They did when it mattered. We were only able to pull that prank once. Again, at the end of the second period, it looked like it was, okay, let's really put the foot on the gas and end Team Sweden's hope here. Tkachuk had a few great looks on the power play, and the Americans unable to cash in. It kind of felt like, as a Panther fan, like, oh boy, you're not taking your opportunity to punish them, and now it's going to cost us. And it almost did in the third period. Well, we did go to overtime, so it did cost us in the third period. But shout out to Hellebuck, because he was awesome, and he had to be yesterday. He was beat a few times, and you know those posts next to you, they say they're the goalie's best friends, and they were his best friends a few times yesterday. But he was awesome in between the pipes for the Americans. And then I said it felt like a Panthers game. That's the point I really want to make about this game yesterday for Team USA. That's why I've said the Panthers a few times when talking about Team USA. It's because when Sweden tied it with a minute 30 to go, I was watching it with a few coworkers, and I slapped the desk. And I literally said, here we go again. And they kind of looked at me. They were like, what are you talking about? It's the first real game that matters of these Olympics, like Team USA. Like, what are you talking about? Here we go again. I said, you're not a Florida Panthers fan. This has been all season long, and I thought the Olympics would bring me some happiness, make me forget about the way the Panthers' regular season has been going, and I literally said, here we go again. But then in the 3-on-3 overtime, which it's dumb, but it worked today for 3 teams, and Quinn Hughes put a bow on it for the USA, and I said, let's go home, baby. Another team that had to say that, well, Finland did. We'll get to that. But Mitch Marner was the one who kind of really started the excitement of the quarterfinals here and the Winter Olympics. Canada was able to escape. Sam Bennett was inactive for Team Canada. Brad Marchand and Sam Reinhart did not hear much from either of them. Kind of expected on this Team Canada team. Only 1 shot from both of them, which is kind of crazy. You didn't expect to hear a lot from them, but only 1 shot for both Brad Marchand and Sam Reinhart. When Canada outshot the Czech 41-24. And I mentioned yesterday that these teams have seen each other, so maybe that will make this game a little bit closer than it was, and I think it did. I think that's exactly why we saw this game go to overtime. Of course, Sidney Crosby did go out of the second. It was in the second period. Sidney Crosby went out for Team Canada and would not return. But I kind of got to work, and it was at the intermission right after Crosby got hurt, so second period. And I said, this feels like March Madness, man. Like, I can't get work done today. We got hockey games, great hockey games at that, going all day long, just one after another. And I love that this one started in the morning, just able to carry it over into the Americans game. And like I said, one of my bosses who I was watching the Americans game with, well, he's from Canada. So hockey to him is like football to us. And I walked into his office at one point, right when I got to work. So I was walking here and didn't know the score. So I was trying to see if there were any updates. There weren't. And it was right after Crosby had got hurt. And I slowly just kind of like, oh, and like walked away from his office. Then later on, when the Czech took the lead late in that game, I was like, I got to go say something. My other boss, my real boss, goes, I'll fire you on the spot if you walk in there and start messing with him right now. I was like, okay, I'm not going to do it. Thankfully, I didn't, because watching that American game with him, he would have been giving it right back to me. But, I mean, how about that game for Team Canada? Again, working in a newsroom, I mean, everyone's gathered around the TV. And Racco Gudis, a little bit of a talk of the town after that, maybe some dirty hits in that one. He is a former Florida Panther. I think as a Panther fan, you don't see too much dirtiness. You see Racco Gudis playing heavy, playing physical, and that's kind of how I saw it. I didn't see the Sidney Crosby hit live. I've only seen pictures of it, so I'm not going to make too many bold comments about that, but I think Racco Gudis, we all know the type of player he is as Florida Panthers fans here on Florida Panthers Daily, that he is a physical player, and especially when the games mean something, you know, okay, that might be a second too late, but he's willing to risk the penalty. And we'll leave it at that as we move on to the 3-on-3. I've hinted at it a few times. The overtime rules and some of these Olympic rules in general. Oh, actually, I do want to hit on first Finland. We'll hit on that in a little bit because they also went to this 3-on-3 overtime. Finland, Canada, America. Lots of Panthers on those teams, all winning in overtime yesterday. And I mentioned this when I was previewing the Olympics. I do not like the 3-on-3 overtimes. But I believe the reason we saw so many 3-on-3 overtimes today is because what's the point of playing a round robin when no teams are going to be eliminated? You got to at least knock out a few. You're giving teams the bye. Sure, I like the reseeding. I really like the reseeding. If America would have lost to Sweden, Canada would have been playing Sweden. And Finland would have been playing, who do they got? Finland would have been playing Slovakia. With the reseeding, I do like that. But you got to send teams home after the round robin. Otherwise, you get these matchups like you had the Czech and Canada. One, that's a rematch. And you get the matchups like USA and Sweden, where those feel like USA and Canada were head and shoulders and expected to be that above every other team in this tournament. And now they arguably get the worst draw when you get to the quarterfinals. Coming into these games, we said, oh, this is going to be a tough one for the Americans. Having to play Sweden, that's not, I don't want to use the word fair. I mean, you're going to have to, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. But for Canada to play the Czech for the second time and USA to be playing Sweden, I think there's got to be some sort of framework that's a little different that can get you better matchups or maybe more fair matchups for the teams that did dominate in the group stage. And that's my take on that. That leads to 3 overtime games in the quarterfinals in the 3-on-3. The NHL does it in the regular season to speed games up. Don't play as many players as much as you need. Get the games to end. You don't want as many shootouts. But when it gets to the playoffs, it gets to 5-on-5 for a certain reason. It's because they want true hockey being played. They want to determine a true winner. And I know there's no shootout in the gold medal game. There would have been if you go through all 10 minutes of the 3-on-3 here in the quarterfinals that we saw yesterday. But when you're playing 3-on-3, you're never going to get that shootout. Which, okay, I agree. I don't think a game needs to come down to a shootout. But the 3-on-3, it doesn't seem right. Especially, maybe this is just because Team Canada isn't losing. If you're now Team Canada, you know, I mean, we kind of expected this when you look at the roster. But if Team Canada goes to overtime with the roster they have, they're not losing. They're not losing. You know, if you're Team Canada, just get to overtime. It's hockey. Obviously, stuff can happen. Clip me on this when they lose in overtime, hopefully to the Americans or before that. But if Canada with that roster makes it to overtime, it feels like the game will be over in that. But no reseeding was done. Again, I mentioned I like the reseeding idea of it. None of it was done because all the top 4 seeds won, including Finland, who also won in that 3-on-3. Anton Lundell with the game-winning assist in that one for the Finns. Andrew Sheridan also picked up an assist. So 3 Panthers moving on with Team Finland. Those 2 I mentioned, and Nico Mikala. And then Sam Bennett, Sam Reinhart, and Brad Marchand moving on for the Canadians. We'll see if Bennett now gets action, if Crosby cannot go. And then Matthew Tkachuk moving on with Team USA. We'll hit a few trade rumors here. I do kind of want to look back on my best bets. This is the first show in a while I haven't done a best bet to end because, of course, there are no games today. Yesterday, I gave you McDavid, Lundell, and Tkachuk all to have a point. Tkachuk not getting a point was the reason we lost that, which there were a few on that power play I mentioned where I thought he would have done it. So, again, semifinals, Finland, Canada, USA, Slovakia will be happening tomorrow on Friday. But I want to focus on some of the trade rumors as we are coming out of the Olympics soon. Last year, coming out of the Four Nations tournament, 6 trades in the first 8 days after the tournament. So don't be surprised if on Monday, when that freeze is done, we start to see a lot of teams start to make a lot of moves as we push towards the postseason. We talked about the other day the Bruins in the Atlantic Division kind of holding that last wildcard spot, really looking to go all in and make a move. It really looks like they've centered in on Justin Falk, or a lot of the rumors here over the break. And then lastly, a former Panther back here in the trade rumors, Mackenzie Weegar. Mackenzie Weegar. No, Mackenzie. And it looks like the Senators will be trying to grab him if the Flames are willing to give him up. I'm coming off a lot of energy recording this here today, but I hope everyone enjoyed Florida Panthers Daily on this Thursday, February 19th. That subscribe button below. My social media is at AJ Sheridan Radio. Until tomorrow, where we are getting ready to preview the semifinals, let's go Cats.